Some of y'all have been with me over the years and know my backstory. You actually lived the weird mystery with me and watched it play out on Facebook when I was so sick, begging y'all for some direction as to what could be wrong. But to those who are kind of new, I'll just cut to the chase and bring you up to speed. For 3.5 years, my ex-husband poisoned me in my coffee behind my back. I was continually sick, so much so that I and my family thought I was dying. I'm not really going to go into all the details of that today because what I really want to bring our focus and our attention to is Jesus and brokenness and how we deal with people in those kind of situations. Growing up a preacher's kid, I was afforded a lot of insight and opportunities that others weren't. I'm grateful for that, and I'm also traumatized, if I'm being honest, but anyway. I saw a lot of grief growing up. We went to lots and lots of funerals. People came to our house to meet with my parents a lot, and it usually wasn't for happy reasons. People are generally pretty broken when they end up on the preacher's doorstep. But throughout these encounters of brokenness growing up in the church, I've noticed one thing, and with my experience, I've noticed one thing as Christians. We aren't really well equipped at dealing with things we have no answers for. And since grief and brokenness is a bottomless pit of unanswered questions, it's no wonder we struggle so much in this space. I remember many years back we were in a congregation and a couple lost their youngest son in a tragic accident. The entire congregation mourned. It was really, really terrible. Later, I remember my friend, the mom, talking to me about it. She recalled a story where she was in a grocery store and she saw a fellow Christian hide behind the potato chips so they wouldn't have to interact with her. It broke her heart. It broke mine too. You know, my youngest daughter has a terminal illness called MPS, and my fellow MPS family echo the same sentiments of grief and loneliness. People are generally avoidant of us when it comes to our dying kids. They have no idea what to do with it. Hey, guess what? We don't either. I remember when I found out about what my ex had done and realized why I'd been so sick for years, my world was completely shook to the core of shookness. I could not have been any shooker. There was grief on so many fronts, and it overflowed in buckets. When my fellow Christians found out, you know what they said? Nothing. Literally. To this very day, nearly 4 years to the day, no one has said anything. Now, I don't know if I'm necessarily saying my friend's grief or my MPS family's grief and brokenness should stop your world, but I don't know, maybe it should. When we look at the story of Job and how his friends related to him through his brokenness, we often say, well, Job's friends weren't good friends. They said all the wrong things. But you know what? Job's friends sat with him for 7 days in silence, tore their clothes, and wept with him. At least his friends had the decency to sit and weep in silence for 7 days, no less. Instead, we hide behind potato chip displays and dole out bad advice immediately. We love to offer up our old standard of Romans 8:28, all things work together for good, when it's not only a complete contextual misapplication of Scripture, but it's also rudely inappropriate timing. Look, it's uncomfortable to deal with your own grief. Ministering to someone in a situation that has no answers seems impossible, and I get that. But that's when we need to put Philippians 4:13 into practice. You know, the I can do all things through Christ passage that's found emblazoned all over t-shirts and home decor. That's when we need to be vulnerable and just say what everybody already knows anyway. I don't have any answers for you. And no one on this planet does. It's all very wrong and very unfair. And I cannot even begin to imagine what you're feeling, and I don't even know what to say right now. But I just want to sit with you in this season of grief, no matter how long that lasts. And that right there is the very essence of what we find in Galatians 6:2, where we are given a direct command to bear one another's burdens. We are to stand in the gap for when others can't see a way forward, even when we don't see a way forward. Because Christ has promised that He will equip us to do just that, to see the way forward. The thing is, we have to be willing to sit with our discomfort long enough for Him to show His great work within us. And there's where we have a challenge, a big opportunity for growth. I want to share an excerpt from my upcoming book. It's a passage where I discuss my feelings of despair and abandonment. And this passage sums up why I do what I do, and why I'm so open with my life, and why I'm so open with who I was and who Jesus changed me to be. I don't want anyone to ever feel as alone and broken as I did, and as far as beyond the reach of Jesus that I did. I want to offer others hope, even in the darkest seasons of life. In that moment, I just wanted someone to hug me, to hold me, to cry with me, to tell me that it wasn't right, and that it shouldn't have happened, and that I didn't deserve it, and that it was all wrong, and that they were sorry. Yet I was met with silence, indifference even. No one mentioned it. No one actually said anything about it. It's as if it wasn't mentioned. It really never even happened. Ooh. I kept thinking over and over and over, how can we claim to know Jesus when we won't even lay on the floor and weep with a person in their most broken state? If we cannot meet a person where they physically are, how can we even expect to meet a person where they spiritually are? Jesus wept at the death of his friend Lazarus, not because Lazarus had physically died, because Lazarus was going to be raised from the dead shortly thereafter, and Jesus knew that. Jesus wept because he felt the overwhelming sadness of Lazarus' family and friends. Jesus wept because he was moved with compassion over their suffering and grief. Jesus wept out of his empathy for others. Jesus wept out of his pure love for others. And I kept thinking over and over and over, what was the death of Jesus for if we do not pour that love into others at their most brokenness? It was almost as if my raw, impulsive response to drink the vodka was worse than him systematically trying to kill me. And I could not wrap my mind around all of that. So I drank, and I drank, and I drank until my soul reached the bottom of its brokenness. I pray that if you're in a season of brokenness, that you look to the only one who can fix it all. I pray that as Christians, we're willing for God to equip us to be his gentle hands and his swift feet, ready to minister to those who feel they are so beyond his gracious reach. I pray that as we sit with the discomfort of grief and brokenness, we are willing to do it for the entire season, no matter the duration. And I pray that if you feel so alone, so broken and beyond help, that you allow just a glimmer of his abundant light through one of those cracks in your heart, so that he can shine his gift of grace into your life. And I pray that you accept his gift of grace, and that you allow his hand to fix it all and make you whole for eternity. Thank y'all so much. Much love. Laugh hard and stay sober, y'all.